So we saw the devastation in Solai Dam, and of course we want to hear from panelists. Our panelists this morning, as far as the security is concerned, it's a big threat. We've had also a warning from the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Energy, that is Charles Ketera, warning about also Masinga Dam filling up, and that is threatening lives around. Of course, that particular dam, people have been requested to evacuate, or yes, to move to higher grounds so that their lives will not be in harm's way. We have with us this morning Professor Naomi Damba, who is the Vice Chancellor of KC University. Also, he is an expert on defense and foreign policy. Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, who is a former deputy leader or the deputy chair of the African Union. We have Dr. Mustafa Yusuf Ali, who is a conflict and resolution expert. We do have with us as well Irungu Houghton, who is the executive director of Amnesty International Kenya, and we have with us Major Retired Lucy Mukuria. She is a military psychologist. Also, she is the founder and the CEO of the True North. So your reaction on this, especially from the humanitarian point of view. We can begin with you, Irungu Houghton. The Solai Dam, and of course, right now, people, even the Senate committee, is asking, can something be done? The owner of the dam, can he be arraigned in court? Up to today, we've never even seen the face of Mr. Patel, right? So what is really happening in terms of, expediency in meting out justice for these people that were affected by the Solai Dam? We have cases that we know from before that he was actually requested not to build the dam so many years back. By then also the Member of Parliament from Subukia, that is Koigi Omwere. And that particular request or that particular advice was also poo-pooed. But now today we see the cascading effects of it. Your thoughts? You've been to the ground, maybe you're not. Maybe you can tell us from the humanitarian point of view, what should be the recourse?
Thank you very much, and let me just start. I thought you were going to introduce me as the former panelist of NTV AM Live, so I'm glad to be back, and good morning. Good morning, Kenyans. I have a bit of a cold, so my voice is not as melodic as it could be. I think first we obviously, like the rest of the country, we have to start by expressing our condolences to the people who have lost their loved ones. Yes. We need to also join Senator Kihika in calling for the urgent investigation and prosecution of whoever is responsible for this great tragedy. I received calls all the way from South Africa from people who are asking, how is it possible that you could lose 50 or 60 people in a case like this? And this was about a week ago. So I think I think we have to look again at our disaster management policies and laws. I think there are a number of policies that are stuck and need to be brought out of the books and given life. I mean, I haven't looked at this particular case, but I've been very concerned about a number of other cases, like emergency healthcare cases, where you've had multiple pile-ups on our roads. And the reality is that not only are we very poor at preemptive kind of management of potential disasters, but we are terrible at responses. So in this particular case, I think there is nothing more that needs to be done except a very thorough investigation, a very quick investigation, and prosecution of those responsible for this. It is clear, I mean, I think that there have been a number of concerns raised by, whether it be former leaders or even by the villagers themselves, that this would happen. But it's just a terrible disaster.
Terrible disaster. Of course, now we are opening our eyes even to Masinga Dam right now, and Clarence called there from the Cabinet Secretary. Maybe you can have a reactions also, or a reaction from Lucy?
Well, just listening to what is happening with Masinga now and what people have been asked to do. The question I am asking myself is, what help are the people who are being asked to move being given? Because it's one thing to tell people, oh, the flood is coming. But people want to stay, this is my ancestral land, I have crops in the field, oh, maybe it won't happen to me. Even as we talk about preventing another disaster and just staying loyal to, the circles of disaster management, what mechanisms have been put in place to actually physically help these people move to a different location? That is the question I would be asking, because if it's just an oral warning that has been given, I think let us prepare for Solai. You called it season 2, like for NYS.
No.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we need to engage actively, not just give out an early warning sign and wait for people to heed the call. So I would be interested to know what is being done to help people to physically move.
But it appears also this is just an oral pronouncement from, of course, the cabinet secretary, but we don't have any mechanisms that they have been told, yes, now you can go to safer grounds, but what is the government doing in terms of deploying these people to the safer grounds, and where are these safer grounds? So those are probing questions that we need to ask also this morning. Let's hear from Ambassador Erastus Mwencha.
First of all, to join Irungu in, conveying our condolences, but also then to challenge those in authority and who are responsible for management of water. And you don't see this only coming out of Solai. If you see here in Nairobi now, particularly, I'm addressing now the Water Resources Management Authority. Even the way boreholes are being dug all over the place, there is no clear indication of how we are going to use this scarce resource, which is a blessing to us. We have had unusual rains, but which has turned out to be a curse. Just advancing that point by Lucy, you don't just tell people move and safer grounds. You have not defined where this water is going to cover. You should always then say, okay, corridors have been prepared where people are going to move to, and schools or facilities prepared where you'll move these people, and then emergencies prepared for them to get water and facilities for schools to continue to provide education to students. You don't even know the population that is affected and whether you can manage that. I mean, maybe the CS is okay in just giving that. Perhaps it's passing on to the devolution ministry now to move in, and the county government. But 3 days down the road, you're saying by Friday, and this is the kind of warning you are giving, it doesn't look serious. No.
Oh, it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction that is coming. So they're calling for disbandment of Warma. You take on this, Dr. Mustafa.
They should have resigned, Debarl. I don't think they should wait to be disbanded. First of all, our thoughts with the families that have lost their loved ones and those that are recuperating from that disaster and accident that happened in Solai. One thing that is very clear is that preventive mechanisms seems not to be working, not just in terms of impending disasters in this country, but all around Debarl. And so when prevention fails and then an accident happens, and we see those who are responsible or bear greatest responsibility for those disasters still walking free, or we don't know where they are. I don't know where Patel is. He should be somewhere, a DCI, answering questions. The senators, the political leaders, community leaders have made it very clear that they actually want this particular person against construction of the dams. Chances are that he paid officials, perhaps in Warma, in administration, some bribes to conceal his activities and to continue constructing those dams illegally, and that now have claimed lives. This person should be arraigned in the court of law and charged with a number of criminal activities that he has conducted, and those that are responsible for ensuring that such disasters do not happen should also be arrested, Debarl, and they should be made to answer those questions. That we have over 40 people, including children, that have been that have died from this disaster is unacceptable.
Unacceptable. All right, but the issue of corruption, because it seems this is where it's emanating. We don't know if maybe some hands were greased as far as checking out this particular dam is concerned, that it was just maybe a slap on the wrist as far as security measures with the Solai Dam is concerned? Could there have been a lapse, right? Because also looking at today's editorial cartoons with the NYS scandals as well. We have stories, of course, also of former officials of Nairobi City Council being arraigned in court and also thrown into the jails right now. But it seems we always go for the small fishes, right? We still have, we'll run the cartoons one more time by you to comment on them as well. But the issue of corruption itself, because all these things, and we've been discussing here on this particular panel, all these tragedies are emerging cause of corruption. We can all point the accusatory fingers to the issue of corruption in this country. Let's hear from you, Irungu Houghton.
So the case of NYS in particular is something that pains me, because we worked on the first round of kind of criminal actions or the economic crimes that we saw in the NYS in 2015. And we were promised a number of things. We were promised new laws. We were promised greater transparency in the monitoring of the management of companies that would be set up to do business with the government. So there were a number of reforms. This was the year, if you remember, the year of the list of 179 people who were identified in Parliament as having committed economic sabotage against the government. And for us to be 3 years again looking at another 9 billion shillings, for me, it just pains me. In fact, there was a young man that I mentor who asked to send me just a WhatsApp, and he said, do we have a country anymore? And to be honest, that's one of the first WhatsApps that I actually had to stop and think about, because it seems to be the case that we have lost our we've lost our country essentially to a group of mafia interests, both within government and in the private sector. I think the second thing is really that before we all kind of disappear into cynicism, it's really important that we continue to call for accountability for what has happened. And I think in the case of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, he has just received his very first big challenge to see whether he can actually pull off an investigation that does lead to convictions. The second point, I think, really is the pages of the newspapers today are very interesting, and I won't speak to the other newspapers because I know you won't invite me back, but the Daily Nation in particular shows how bizarre our country can be. On one side of the newspaper, we are actually indicating we're reminding ourselves that John Gakuo was probably going to be the next deputy governor. And in the other part of the newspaper, he's now responsible and has been convicted and will probably be sentenced to 3 years in jail for essentially stealing 230 million shillings from the county of Nairobi. And I often ask, how is this possible that people who are vested with such responsibility could also have such high levels of integrity lapses? And I think that's just the chaos. I mean, to be honest, he was a heartbeat away from becoming our deputy governor, despite this case having been run. And my question to those that identify, particularly if I can put this to the floor of Governor Sonko, is how could he ever have been considered as the deputy governor given this case was underway?
So this case was underway. And very interesting also if we look at also what is on the front page of a Business Daily, because we're looking at this particular editorial cartoon by Gado. It's all about NYS. We read it earlier at the top of the hour. The predecessors did 800 million shillings in 5 years and ended up a governor. And this is in connection with what you were saying. And also, but you, my dear, 9 billion shillings in a year, you are presidential material. This is what the Posey of Guns are saying. And I want just to take you back to the Business Daily, just to see what it holds for us. We have foreign firms to pay billions of shillings in new income tax. And I was reading a story, I don't know where it is, if it's on the front page of a Daily Nation, how Kenyans now, top earners now, this is a sidebar story on the front page of a Daily Nation, to pay 35% tax in new proposals, right? So Treasury, Secretary Henry Rotich is hitting Kenya's big earners with a 35% top tax rate in his quest to increase income tax revenues by 68 billion shillings the top tax rate targets those earning more than 9 million shillings a year or 750,000 and above monthly. And of course, this is just not it. We have that breakdown going and affecting every Kenyan. So here, we are raising taxes. Here, just to show you the country that we're living in, we have the editorial cartoons really showing us where we are. First of all, we have the NYS scandal. No, this is season 2. We know season 1, and we've been talking about this since Monday, that also the former principal secretary has been acquitted because of sloppy job that was done by the police. So that particular case, of course, some monies were returned back to NYS, but we don't know what will really happen also, of course, with this particular development as well. Maybe if we may look at another editorial cartoon, and I think this was a different one, but on NYS is where I want us to really talk about the corruption thingy. Where is it? It's dodging me. Yeah, this is it in the Daily Nation. So the headlining story on the front page of the Daily Nation yesterday was 9 billion shillings. How 9 billion shillings just walked out of NYS, and the posse of goons are still here. On the other hand, we're increasing taxes, saddling Kenyans with so much, burden of tax. Our tax revenue in this country is still wanting. And this money, we faithfully give out this money. We faithfully pay our taxes, but it is going to the hands, the clammy fingers of the cartels in this particular country. How can we effectively address, even when the president comes to the fore and expresses frustration with the private sectors, that yes, we need to do something, we need to clamp down on corruption, but still we are seeing only the big fish are the people who are taken to the slumbers. Let us just be genuine and let it all hang out from our hearts and talk about corruption and security in this country. We've not heard from Professor Noami Damba. Did I just forget you today?
Debarl, Debarl, you're doing that on purpose.
Not.
When you drive through the countryside in Denmark or in any of the Scandinavian country, people are always smiling. And it comes to rating of the happiest country in the world. Those are the happiest countries in the world. Why? Because their tax works. There is free school, there is free housing, system is in place, the roads are constructed, infrastructure is taken care of. And so the Scandinavians are happy to pay higher taxes such that all that is taken care of. And the money they have, they travel with. Last week on our panel on Friday, we talk about corruption calculation. People actually calculate what is the consequences of my deed. And once they calculate that they will pay so much money to the judge, so much to the police, whatever is left, then I'm going to be well and good, fair, walk away. The point is this cannot go on in this country and we pretend that everything is okay. We must fight corruption in the same manner, with the same weight we're fighting ethnic conflict. In fact, what needs to happen is we need to create a scam hall of fame so that we can put their pictures on the national park. We can put them on the front page so everybody can know. The consequences, these people have no right to run for public office. They have no right to represent us in any way, shape, or form. In public, they have no right to work in this country. They belong to prison and they belong to the Hall of Fame.
Right. And I think also that was a very interesting observation in the Sunday Nation, where we had the constitutional lawyer, Washira Wainaina, do I get his name right, where he was suggesting, why can't we come up with something like that, a legislation where, yes, is a sort of a hall of shame for the people who have been enrolled in this country and they are listed, right? just as you mentioned, Irongo Houghton, that yes, we have the deputy governor who now, the case, or maybe she was embroiled in corruption, but now it's really coming to the fore that yes, she will be arraigned in court, or she'll be now taken to the slummers as well. But she was poised to be a deputy governor in the Nairobi County. So people who have been embroiled in corruption, or even mentioned, they should step aside. They should be listed in this particular, you know, I don't know how they call that bill. I can't remember the bill itself, but it was a good suggestion that I think even the politicians were saying, yeah, maybe Kenya, we need to go that way, so that actually your face is put out in the public. You know, you're castigated, you know, people really talk and they know your face, that you are associated with corruption in this country, and you should not run for any office. Maybe we can wind up on that issue of corruption. Let's hear from Ambassador Erastus Bwenja.
Yeah. Debarl, we have a very good constitution. Chapter 6 has very comprehensive elements of conduct of state officers and how we should manage the issue of, you know, how we approach our offices and how we manage public resources, and also conduct, including elections. Mm-hmm. But Parliament has been a major letdown. First of all, refused to really invoke the provisions of Chapter 6. And also, if you look at that Chapter 6, it provides for formulation of laws. And that would have been, one of the elements would have been, anybody who has been associated with or mentioned in any scandal should not run for an office. But that was done. So now you have a kind of Parliament captured itself, because these people who go and loot the state coffers, go and clean this money by offering it to the public, they end up being elected, and then you send them to Parliament, they are going to make laws. They will not make laws to arrest themselves. Mm-hmm. So really, short of a public outcry or coming out to say, Parliament must, let's do something about Parliament. But beyond that, I think it's not all hope is lost. I think this history is building itself. And no matter how long it takes, criminal cases don't have expiry date. Those that have been stealing coffers, state coffers, looting from state coffers, will never escape. So I think, as we say, let's start building this list of shame, but go beyond that and start serious prosecution of what is happening now.
Yeah, list of shame. Yeah. Let's hear from Irongo Houghton. Oh, yes.
I think we're past the naming and shaming. I think we've done this quite successfully. I think what we really need is prosecutions and convictions.
If these guys are immune.
I think that is the only thing that will make a difference here. I mean,
in this country?
I think so. I mean, unless we are having convictions and people remain in prison and we organize trips to go visit them. So one of the things that could be done, for example, is anybody who seeks public office should be taken as part of an orientation to Committee Maximum Security or any of our police stations,
but
and interview officers that have been jailed for this purpose as a wake-up call. That, I think, would be an interesting exercise, and it should be televised.
But you had a wonderful campaign prior to elections with the red card campaign. Yeah, you've been red carded. Yeah. I think along the way also it tapered off after the general election. Why can't we continue?
It was a very focused campaign, and actually just to mention, not that it's good to brag, but as Muhammad Ali, the boxer, not the politician or the journalist, would say, it's okay to brag if you can back it up. So I just want to say that that campaign actually won an Africa Sabre Award for its innovativeness in terms of the campaign against corruption last week in Botswana. So Transparency International, Mzalendo.com, Trust, and the Society of International Development was actually heralded for that particular campaign. It was very focused on essentially stopping candidates from running in the elections that had very clearly basically infringed our laws or had been found culpable by a statutory body for some form of criminal action or failure to protect public finances. And we focused on 20 candidates. It was the big 20. 8 of them did not go through in the elections. 12 of them managed to get re-elected and are now occupying public offices. But that campaign was very much focused around the elections. But I do think the methodology could be adapted by different people, by citizens, by civic groups. And what people should be doing right now is decampaigning public officers or state officials who have not necessarily been convicted, but and nevertheless have been seen as per chapter 6 to have fallen short in the public eye as having fallen short in terms of the integrity standard. I think part of the problem we had last year was that the IEBC took a legal standard rather than an ethical standard in terms of clearing people to run for the elections. And the result is really, the stuff of cartoons.
Stuff of cartoons. Let's hear from, we'll come to you, Professor. Let's hear from Lucy.
I hold a different view. And I want to categorically say that we get the leaders that we deserve. I have had people blame Warma. People blame Parliament. People blame institutions. But there's nothing wrong with our institutions, They have been organized and set up in a way they should operate at optimal levels. The problem is us. Even when we talk about who we elect to Parliament, they just don't get there. We elect them. What if we started electing people who we held at a higher standard in terms of ethics? We keep being told systems are broken, systems need to be changed, systems need to be overhauled, we need to overhaul the constitution. But how is that going to make a person who has no integrity have more integrity? It can't happen. There are no broken systems, just status quos that are maintained for the benefit of a few. Can we just, accept that and begin with ourselves and how we cast our ballots and the reason behind how we cast our ballots? Is it from the heart? Is it from conviction, or is it from a wave, or is it from ethnic loyalty?
Thank you.
We need to examine ourselves.
Thank you. Dr. Mustafa.
Debarl, Ambassador Mwich has just said we have enough laws, legislation. The Constitution in itself, Chapter 6, talks about, in fact, the minimum threshold of a person who should be elected or rather who should be allowed to vie for leadership position even before voters go and elect that person. And that is to guard against, in large part, some ill-informed masses that then just go and vote for people who dish out 50 shillings or buy them a can of changa to vote them in. With regard to the it's just the system, Debarl, and if the system is serious about getting those that are corrupt to book, they will actually do it, and they should do so without fear. Otherwise, and this is very serious, the person who sent Irungu a WhatsApp message, do we still have a country? And I think we should be asking that question, do we have a country?
Do we have a country? All right, Professor Naomi Dumba.
Well, simply put, and I agree with my colleagues here, Muchuki implemented the law. There was no need for additional law. And we have it here. We have everything we do. Rollins lined up these people and shot them. And when he completed, nobody stole anymore. In China, they hung them. And I don't agree with capital. I don't agree with capital punishment. But I agree that we need to have serious consequences that every single Kenyan understands. The British used to whip them up, and lock them in. And so the point is, if we are serious about getting to the root cause of what is happening in this country, then we need to be serious about the consequences of stealing 1 shilling from the public, or in any way, case or form. That's what we need to focus on as the people of this country.
All right, thank you.